Just try to get them worked up.
Yeah.
Just so everyone is aware, Chambers is unmuted and we are live.
Thanks, Amanda. Everybody hear that? It's live, so just be careful. What'd you say? Thanks, Amanda.
Oh, so you want me to just do the one and then do
No.
Hans, we're live, just, you know.
You were curious.
I was. I couldn't make it.
Summons? Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't make it, but I wanted to listen. You'll want to. That's it.
Oh, I saw this. So we're doing it.
Well. I'll tell you what. Come to the curb. That's why. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Maybe. I got one. Oh, is this the new one? I'll be a confirmed yes on this one.
I forgot that I had a little confiscation.
Oh. Smart. Get turned in or?
I didn't have to pay the I didn't have to pay the $3.
That's a straw buy.
Okay, the meeting will please come to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Push your arm.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we're not gonna follow the agenda today. We have a couple of people who have other appointments. So we're gonna start with Sue.
Jim is.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I have a resolution on the agenda, and it is to change salary for a part-time research aide in the county historian's office. This woman has worked, this person has worked for 15 years for us at a very low salary. And she does a great job, and I think she's deserving of a raise for sure. And this would not start until the 2024 year, so
GO3, correct, Sue?
feel free.
A motion,
I'll move that.
a second.
Okay.
Any discussion? Any further?
Can I ask this, didn't we already do this?
No.
Oh, we did it at GO, not
Yeah.
at, okay, all right. I'm like, this already passed. Okay, yeah, it did it. Okay, yep.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Sue, anything to add to your report or?
No, just that we've been over at the record center for a couple mornings, and it's besides seeing a chipmunk in there. We've seen a lot of different things. We came across the Erie Canal things, and then 1795 deeds, just incredible things. So you have to make decisions on a lot of things as we go along, but you never know what you're gonna see when you open up a box, even though it says whatever's in it. Sometimes there is those things, and then sometimes there's a lot of other things, so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you. Interesting.
Okay, Jennifer is next. What's your name?
Just curious. We just separated this out of the GO just because she asked us to?
Yes.
Okay, because that's what I'm
No.
thinking, didn't, all right, yeah, it's not on the ways.
Right, she's got someplace to be. I believe the same. here.
So you have my report in front of you. There's also an additional resolution that was a late addition today. And I don't know if it's on that, is it on the agenda?
No.
No, it's not, okay.
It did, yeah,
It did make it
Is
on.
it
The one that,
the gas station?
Yes, it did get revised and got on, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure.
So I don't know if anybody has any questions on my report.
So,
Um,
let's do the resolution then,
Yes, if we could.
which is number one.
WM4.
Yeah, that's the one. WM4, the motion.
Move it with Mark, the seal.
Okay, this is, well, go ahead. Explain it quickly.
So it's the authorization to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Aurelius. So essentially, the county has started a foreclosure process on what's known as the old working man's garage on Genesee Street. And we've petitioned the court to do a temporary incident of ownership, which essentially allows the county to enter the property to do environmental testing. And I believe there were some additional language put in there to possibly secure the building as well. So the town of Aurelius has offered to pay for the environmental testing on the property. So this agreement would allow us to enter into that agreement with them so they could do the environmental testing and they would be paying for it with their ARPA funds. So it would be at no cost to the county. At least for the testing portion, once we discover if there is petroleum contamination, there would have to be further discussions from there. But the first phase is to at least test and see if there is contamination.
Any further questions?
Hey, Hans, I have a comment. I have a question, please.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So,
Not that I can stop you anyway.
30 words or less.
might be hard today. So is this bind us to any sort of an agreement with Aurelius that, you know, they'll end up with a property if they go taxes or?
No,
No,
it's just
they're just fronting the bill to,
strictly
Nice.
testing.
Okay.
Everything else comes after that.
thank you.
Maybe interested.
I'm sorry?
Well, I can't imagine that they're just ponying up money for the sake of ponying. it up.
Well, their concern was that the building is vacant, all the windows have been knocked out at some point. They think of it as a kind of a hazard, public nuisance.
Okay.
I think they're, apart from the testing, they want to secure the building. And ultimately would like to see the building come down, but we can't do that unless and until we take title.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So if the county's taking this back for taxes, wouldn't it have to go on the auction?
If we ultimately do take it back after the testing is completed, that would be one course of action. We also would have the option to have some sort of negotiated transaction either with the town or some, neighboring property owner wants it. So everything is basically going to hinge on the results.
So basically this test, I mean, that's what I was getting at. This testing has to be done before anything can be done with the property.
Correct. Yeah.
We could do the testing though and decide that it's too costly to take it, and we could decide not to follow through with the foreclosure.
Which then put the onus back on them to do something with it, the town.
The town wouldn't own it, it would still be the prior owner that would still have it, so it's really just still a nuisance.
Which never could get settled. If it comes back, the tests are horrible. Nobody wants it. Somebody's not paying the taxes now. They sure as the hell ain't gonna start paying the taxes.
Right.
County don't want it. The town's not gonna want it. So where's the end result?
I think at that point, one thing we could do would be to cancel the taxes on the property so that we don't continue to the chargebacks to the town and the school district. That would be one step. I suppose if we entered on the property to demolish the building from a safety standpoint, possibility. Other than that, the property would just slide fallow.
Answer everybody's questions or are there more?
I guess I'm a little, we have to do this, the county, because we're the entity that would be the entity foreclosing. This testing can't be done until we take this action. We're going to do the testing, or Bilius is, or?
The town of Aurelius is doing the testing. They've hired Barton and Judas. They're ready to go as soon as we say yes.
And that's the intermunicipal agreement we're gonna have with the town, so they can do it and fund the site testing and all of that.
Yes.
Anybody else? Not all those.
Just one quick one. In this kind of an instance, is our owner responsible for any contaminants or cleanup?
Theoretically, the answer to that is yes. The owner of this property is long gone. It's an LLC that has, no assets.
Thank you.
Theoretically. All right, don't worry. Theoretically.
Any further questions? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution WM4? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carrie, thank you. Anything further?
I have one other, well, there's one other county attorney item on the agenda, but it is real property related. Which I'm not sure what number it is, but it's fixing the day and notice for public hearing for local law. WM2.
2 or 3?
Fixing the day and notice
Three.
public hearing.
2 of them.
Notice public hearing at 2.
There's 2.
Authorizing the sale of county property.
That's 2.
That's two. Sorry.
We'll do it.
So this, essentially last year, the county-owned real property committee met and reviewed the list of the county-owned properties and which ones we felt we needed to retain, as well as which ones we no longer had a use for and we thought we could dispose of. So there are 2 properties up in Sterling that the neighboring landowner has requested to purchase. One of the properties is completely landlocked. And the other one is a small triangle that's on a steep slope that also borders this individual's property. So he is requesting to purchase both of these properties at a price of $4,000, which is in line with once the properties are combined with his land, it's more than what the residual value of that land would be. So I felt that that was fair.
We need a motion.
Move WM2.
Second, Mark.
Okay, open for discussion. Any further questions or comments?
So basically, this will put this back on the tax roll.
Correct.
Further discussion? Not all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Anything more?
Nothing else to add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we're down to the regular agenda if I can find it.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'll move the minutes.
Very good idea.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Second.
Aye. Thanks for the second. Anyone opposed? No one opposed, carried. Okay, now we're down to departments, Mr. Dempsey, the treasurer.
Anybody have any questions? Aside from this tonight, I wanted to mention to you, last month or so, I was here and asked you for your support in changing our investment policy over and adding a new group to work with. And I just wanted to report to you tonight, about a month down the line, we've made over $50,000 more net, 73,000 in total, for an increase of over $50,000 in the last month of where we were. So hopefully if those interest rates continue and we project that out for a year, we're looking at a very substantial amount of money difference. I know that Grace is going to talk to you about the budget tonight, but I just want to mention that to you, that it's working real well so far.
Any questions for David? All right.
475 delinquent tax notices, how does that compare to the past?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Andy.
The 475 delinquent tax notices that were mailed out, how's that compared to the past 2 or 3?
It's not, I don't believe it's as great, a little bit less than what it's been in the past. I can get you some specific numbers if you want to see those for next time.
Be nice to see a comparison.
Okay, I'll get it for you next time.
Anything further for Dave? If not, we'll go on, Grace? There she is.
Before I start, I do have one resolution.
We'll do it at the end.
Do it at the end? Okay. So I also do have a budget update. And prior to that, I guess you have my report in front of you, so I just want to ask before I start the budget update if anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Grace? On the budget, most of us haven't had a chance, including me, haven't had a chance to look at their full budget, so
Okay.
can't comment on it.
Amy, I saw that you came in late. Did you want a copy of this? I do have one extra copy, so before I start. It is going to be up on the screen, but I know sometimes it's hard to see. Thank you. So Hans had asked me to do a budget update. And I worked very closely with Lynn, our budget director, on putting this together. So the last time I did it, I basically just covered some key areas that we feel will have the most significant impact on the budget performance. So I did something similar this time. So we'll move along and go to the first page. I'll start with the good news. Looking at the first page is our sales tax. And basically through September, I did send that out last night, and I apologize for anybody who hasn't been able to read it, but through September, we are up about 0.5%. But projecting out, if we remain constant for the remaining of this year, if we remain consistent with what we did last year, we are projecting that we'll be about 1.7 million over budget in sales tax. And this is actually about a $200,000 increase over the last projection I gave back in April. So this is good news.
And I'd like to point out that in the meantime, we've given up close to $2 million with a home heating fuel tax. So actually our results are a lot better than they look.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing damn well, through the language. So. Continue, please.
Okay. On the next page, as David mentioned, I did look at our interest earnings, and due to an increase in interest rates, working in collaboration with Dave, I'm actually taking me out of my comfort zone a little bit and moving some cash over and working with New York Class. We are going to go way over budget with our interest earnings. We only budgeted 200,000 and projecting that will be at least $1 million in interest earnings. So I'm projecting we'll be over budget by about 875,000. So that's very good news.
Well done.
Just the recent changes we made and just the performance on the other bonds?
Well, the interest rates have gone up significantly since last year, but moving forward in the projections, a lot of it will have to do with the New York Class as well. So, yeah. Moving to the next slide. I just wanted to touch on the salary increases a little bit. Obviously, we know all the contracts have been settled. All the retros have been paid out. And I just wanted to just state that the increases were obviously larger than what was budgeted as an estimate and the provision for salary adjustments account. But talking with Lynn, between the 1 million that was budgeted and the multiple vacancies in the departments throughout the county, we feel that this should not have a significant impact on the 2023 budget. So that was the good news. Now we're moving on to some other things. So the next slide, gain from sale of property. This has to do with the IMREM foreclosure proceedings. We did budget 450,000 in revenue in this account. We will not be receiving any of that. So this is a loss of revenue of 450,000. That will have an impact.
Great. Is that the money that we have to give back to the people that, lost the property? Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
That's correct, Mark. Also, the jury's still out on that because there's a big lawsuit and the governor is a stay in that right now. That's not official yet. There's a lot of larger counties than us that are trying to recoup a lot of this money too. And so it hasn't been fully determined yet, but we can't call it right now until we know that.
So I guess my question is, what happens to that money? It just sets in limbo. It's not like we don't have it in an account somewhere.
I think they're putting it in a trust.
Our benefit?
We have it in a trust account.
But it's in limbo, basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's in limbo until they decide what to do.
We may not have to, so.
Right. That could be a positive, it could be a negative, depending upon what they decide downstate.
But what is lost is the 450,000 that we budgeted
Correct.
If
Right.
we-
this year, so.
Yeah.
So I think, it's more important to just note that this could be a substantial loss for us, so.
So if we do get it though, where would we be? What would our real number be? Not the 450.
Plus 450.
Well,
It'd be an additional.
Depends on-
$1 million made in profit last year. If they sue and all that, all the legal processes, right?
Well, I mean, we're in an unusual spot in that, Supreme Court says we can't keep it, but we don't have a process for returning. And the state hasn't made a move in that direction. There is a bill that's been floating around that would put a moratorium on any future foreclosure process, but that bill hasn't gone anywhere. It hasn't been signed. So everything is really up in the air until we get some of these processes sorted out. I mean, we don't have the authority to give it back. We have a court case that says we ought to, but we don't have a process for, we can't just give it back because you've got other parties who may be involved. You've got mortgage lien holders, judgment creditors out there, and we would need a process or put into place a process for sorting the various parties out.
I'll go ahead.
I guess, so make sure I'm right on the right page. If the county forecloses on a property and then resells it,
Yes.
and if we make more than some dollar amount that it was worth, could you just go over again? And if there was a bank lien, we'd have to clear that or no?
Okay. Back up. Typically in the foreclosure process, it's a in-rem proceeding, meaning it's against the property. We're not suing the individual taxpayers. We go through the process, we foreclose. The judgment in foreclosure clears all pre-existing liens of whatever nature, mortgage, judgment.
Because they're just out of it.
Correct.
Yep.
What the
Okay.
Supreme Court said was if we go and auction that property and we receive more than what was due
In back taxes.
in back
Okay.
taxes, that the taxpayer has a right to claim that money. Having made that ruling, what has not happened at the state level is for the state to tell us how to process this. In a typical mortgage foreclosure, you have, once the bank forecloses on the property, you have what's called a surplus monies proceeding, where if they auction the foreclosed property, they then, people who, if they have a right, have to actually request those monies through the court proceeding. They have to apply to the court, and then a referee will decide who gets how much. We need to, when I say we, the state needs to develop a similar process for counties, because otherwise we're left to our own devices, and we need to do a local law that says, well, if you're a taxpayer and you receive more than what the back taxes were, this is how you apply for it.
Yeah, I
And,
see.
you know,
Okay.
you'd have to have notice and hearings and various other things. The foreclosure process will soon become much more complicated than it is right now.
And this 450,000 is what we would have made if we foreclosed?
If, it's what we budgeted.
In surplus, that we would have.
That's the question I think that Andy was originally asking, that I didn't get the answer. What's the actual number?
I don't think we know, Jen, I mean, you'd have to ask Jenny. We don't do the foreclosure, Jenny did, so, I mean, we were just looking at the budget, there's gonna be a zero in there instead of $450,000, so.
Because this,
Ask her.
So you don't know how she got to there.
this is
No, 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 that's
just
just a-
be made up.
That's a
Yeah, I
budget.
understand that,
We
but
don't know what the actual number was. for the
No, but she made an
foreclosures this year.
estimate based on something.
No,
No.
when you make that estimate a whole year ahead of time, it's a complete guess. We made $1 million the year before. I think I just budgeted 450, was not based on anything.
right, so we got
It's not based on
450,
anything.
we got 450 as a placeholder.
And it's
We
probably
need to
gonna be
know, I
zero.
think, from Jenny,
Exactly what it
it's
could be.
zero, but what it could be. Or
Right,
couldn't be.
I mean, listening to the attorney, I think it's probably gonna be zero for 2023, that we're not gonna record the revenue unless we have way more indication from New York State that. We're not gonna record revenue, and then I'm sure our auditors are gonna say, no. You know, you keep the, you keep the
Understood.
money in
It's
the
in a
trust.
trust.
but-
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting to know how we
Yes,
did
we'd have to
budget
ask her,
wise,
we'd have to ask.
because we're gonna do another budget coming up here.
If I could for a second, it's particularly disappointing to me because this suit, for somebody to go to foreclosure, they have to not pay taxes for 2 years. And then the court had initially decided to give this money back to the people after they've already been delinquent for 2 years. And there's a substantial amount of work done by each of the counties to recoup all that money on top of everything. And I also believe that politically speaking, downstate, I'm sure there's bigger counties and there's people talking to the governor, they're trying to figure out a way to make this work for everybody, because as much as important it is to us, it's bigger in other counties. And it's a mess right now. Worst case scenario is we lose this money that Lynn projected 450, as she said, because we made $1 million last year. And in a worst case scenario, we have to give this money back. And according to Fred, potentially a lawyer could go back if they vote the wrong way and go back after that million from a year before. So it has huge ramifications for us that I disagree with, but I'm just a little guy here, but hopefully this will all be worked out in the near future and they'll figure out a way to compensate the counties for the money.
Plus, Rich, we're also making everyone whole during that time that these people are delinquent, right? Like the school. So,
You are.
I mean, hypothetically speaking, the bank gives a person a loan. The bank must know this person, I would hope, hasn't paid their taxes in 2 or 3 years and it's going to be foreclosed. What keeps the bank from foreclosing on them first so that they don't get thrown out of the system and because it sounds like the bank gets screwed.
In some cases, the banks do. In some cases, the banks come in and will pay the taxes on behalf of the taxpayer and then increase their monthly payment.
They probably have
It's a
insurance,
crap show.
and they probably have insurance against the loan anyway.
But to one of Dave's comments, what we don't know, having this edict coming out of the Supreme Court, we don't know the extent to which a taxpayer could look back. I mean, ordinarily, there's a 3-year statute of limitations for claiming monies from a government that you're entitled to. But what we don't know is whether that statute of limitations would apply to these properties. Because that's a whole nother bailiwick that I'm sure they're debating at the state level how you solve that. I can't give you an answer on that.
Any further questions or comments?
I got one, Hans. This is driving me crazy. So if people out there with money go out and buy 50 houses, don't pay taxes for 2 years, and when we foreclose, and it's over what that's, then they get that money back and never have to pay the taxes back, right?
Well, through the foreclosure process, we get the unpaid taxes.
We get them from who?
Well, if we sell the property and we make more on the property than
Right,
what's due, we keep what's
Right.
due. It's the excess that would,
goes back to the person,
yes.
but and still, they don't have to pay 2 years of taxes,
And
right? So I mean, this could be a scheme for people that have money.
Yes.
Go out and buy all this property, don't pay taxes for 2 years.
Yep.
Are you kidding me?
I'm,
He's just a messenger.
I know, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
you know, I would start a writing campaign to just this property, and, you know, a few others. So, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it gives counties zero incentive to go through a foreclosure.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, how do you enforce the debt if people refuse?
Should send Brian out after him, I guess.
So yeah, I'll vote different.
Anyway,
Crazy.
Any further comments, questions?
just fix the button.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for that explanation.
So moving along to the next slide. Looking at some DSS accounts, safety net. We're projecting that that is going to be over budget by about 550,000. That's net state revenue. So the expenses will be over by about 800,000. There is some state revenue. So we're looking at, they'll be over budget by about 550,000. This is doing a little bit better than what we projected in April as well.
This is,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, go ahead, you're first.
This is all emergency housing of single adults.
It's that and it's your safety net
Cases? Yeah, because when you looked at I see the open cases and then the motels and then the other 4 things are the housing, emergency housing.
Yes.
But this includes how many safety net?
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
that.
I mean, yeah, we have a caseload of safety net people that have benefits that are coming out of this count as well as the housings.
That's correct.
Questions? Go ahead.
So on these safety net things, are any of these state mandated?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them are state mandated, that's my assumption. And how many of them are funded?
So with safety net, there's 29% state funding on safety net cases.
And no federal.
No federal funding at all.
And the county's responsible for the other 69 or 61?
71.
71%.
I think when I started, it was 50-25 at one time, right? Was it ever 25 federal in the beginning?
No, there's no.
So it was always, years ago, it was 50-50, 50 local, 50 state. And then the state changed and it's
pro-
for 29%
program
for a long time.
Is a state program. It's not the federal public assistance program. This
Right.
is something in New York State as is an enhanced benefit for single individuals with no children.
But I guess my point is it's state mandated and not state funded.
The only thing we do get 100% state funding on right now is the code blue. And that's also mandated. That's the,
When it drops below.
yes. Executive order, 32 degrees, yes.
And the TANF cases with individuals with children, it's all 100% covered, state and federal.
That's correct.
Okay,
Which
so
is
this is
why-
the
yeah.
most expensive caseload for the county.
Which one is that?
Safety net is the most.
I don't even have that here because if those case loads and expenditures go up, we'll get 100% funding on those. So it would have no impact on the budget.
Any further questions or comments? Otherwise, go on, please.
The next big one is foster care, of course. There are 2 different lines of foster care that we budget for. We're actually under budget in our EAF foster care, but we are over budget in our regular foster care. So that is, we look to be over budget for foster care in total at about 250,000.
Mr. Chair. Can you help me understand this? Is one for an RTF and one is for a,
It's just, this is mainly just funding streams.
okay, thank you.
So depending on how a foster child comes in and they're coded, Depends on where they're recorded in our budget.
Okay.
And it depends on, and that kind of determines the type of funding they're getting.
Thank you.
Grace, do we still have a foster care block grant? And once we exceed it, it's all local?
Yes, and we do exceed it.
Because the number of kids that are in care and the level of care they're in and the expense of that.
Yes.
But the block grant is capped.
Block grant is capped.
And then over that, that's why we're always trying to reduce the number of kids in foster care.
Yes, and then, you know, if kids that come in foster care are, what we call 4E eligible, then there is open-ended 50% federal funding for those kids, but on the foster care line that's over, well, because we're over budget, we're not gonna see any additional federal funding in that line, so.
David?
And are we increasing? I'm sure we are, foster kids every year. I didn't see it. Are we?
Yeah.
I'm sure we are.
Numbers have gone up over time. This year we've been pretty stable. Some of it is the level of placement that they need. You know, the intensity of the kids that are coming into foster care, the placements they need to meet their needs. Some can be more expensive than others. When you're talking about $800,000, you have, you know, a handful of kids in very expensive placements, and that's going to get you to the $800,000.
Thank you.
But
This foster care block grant, how much is that? Is that a federal grant?
That's a state
Grant?
grant. I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, we we'll go over a lot more of that with the whole budget presentation. We didn't look up.
Is it over $1 million?
Yes, well over $1 million.
Yeah. Next slide is the homeless, our adult protective services, just the homelessness, or the homeless clients that we put up in hotels, motels. There we are looking to be over budget by 320,000 in expenditures. There is 49% state aid for that, or state revenue. So we're looking to be over budget in that line by about 163,000. The next slide is Medicaid. I don't know if you remember, but back in April, we talked about the fact that the state was going to be taking back the federal enhanced funding for Medicaid. We did recently get a letter from the state where they basically told us what our new weekly shares are going to be. So what I did this time, because I know there were questions on what the weekly shares were, you can see throughout the year, they've changed. They've already changed once and they will be changing again in October. They'll be going up to 274,000. So our total Medicaid expenditures are going to be just about 12,000,008. We budgeted 12,000,814. There was a small payment that we did pay to the Department of Health for like an IGT payment. So we are going to be over budget there by about 16,000. I know that's not a lot. The reason I brought this up was because, you know, I just wanted to make a point that we have utilized the entire budget for Medicaid. There is no, a lot of times we give back from that budget. We will not be in 2023.
Sure.
Can you?
Something or out of this.
Well, projecting forward for the weekly shares, we know how much we're going to spend and we know how much we budgeted. So at this point, we're now going to be over budget by 16,000.
The original budget was $13 million. Yes. It has gotten reduced to 12,814 due to some resolutions that we've done throughout the year.
Taken from the
Yes.
Medicaid account.
Yes, it was
It would
185,000.
perform better if we didn't.
Correct.
Yes.
There was 185,000 taken, yes.
Can you help me understand the DOH payment?
So basically what happens is DSS has to pay, the Department of Health is 33,000, but in turn, mental health actually gets double that, 67,784 in revenue, but they don't get that unless we make this payment. So we make the payment so mental health can get the revenue. I think we did something similarly with the nursing home.
But this payment is being made to cover what the county's local share of the overall Medicaid program.
No, we're just talking
He's talking
specifically
about
about this. There's a payment on there for $33,882. that we had to make to the state. Basically, what the state is doing is they're pulling down federal funds, substituting it. They're playing a little switch and bait game with the state. So basically, net, the county was up $33,000, right? Your mental health got 66, we paid 33. In total, we're up $33,000. So we paid it out of this.
Yeah,
federal-
intergovernmental transfer to
IGT,
get,
exactly.
okay,
What
okay.
IGT stand for?
Intergovernmental transfer. We used to do it with the nursing home.
Bigger dollars then, but yes,
So is this like the game of the cup or?
kind of a shell game, yeah.
It's the state.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Watch the birdie over here.
Hans,
No, I'm good.
Dave. This is for the county attorney. Rich, isn't this, let me get it straight. This is federal money that goes down to the state that is legally supposed to go to the counties. The state is illegally holding it. Isn't that what wasn't that the
I'm not
case?
sure this is the same monies that you're talking about.
I thought it was.
No.
No, what you're talking about is the change in the budget that they did this year. They decided that, and actually, they didn't put it in legislation. Administratively, they are withholding monies from the counties
Mhm.
that was intended to go to the counties.
From the federal.
From the feds.
Right.
And they've been doing that for some period of time. This year, they decided to withhold more of it than they had in the past. But I think that's separate from what they're talking about as far as this reimbursement.
Right. All right,
But it
thanks
doesn't change the fact that the
It's
state
happening.
is holding on to federal monies that ought to come,
to the
that
counties.
were intended directly to reimburse the counties.
Right. Thank you.
Moving on. Federal inmate revenue. We were able to, since April, we do have some additional actual payments coming in, and we are still looking to be under budget and revenue by about close to 400,000.
We won't realize the revenue from the federal inmates that we put in the budget by 400,000. That's right. That's kind of what you've been talking about.
Yeah.
So it looks like over the last 3 years, we've budgeted too high. What reason? Previous years?
I'm sorry, what?
Well, it looks like for the last 3 years, we've, 1.4, 1.45, 1.2, we've done under. Or we not, are we doing this because of 19, 18, 17? I mean,
Why did we project so much?
yeah, we projected so much the last 3 years and we.
Did get reduced to 250.
Well, we're always hopeful that it's gonna be at that level. I mean, we have had big fluctuations in this account in the years even before this. And so that's why I did cut it by 200,000. But remember, I'm doing the budget in September and October. I don't know how the year is gonna end up and the sheriff was kind of saying that he's giving more other inmates, county ones, taking up the cells. If he hadn't freed up, he could have more inmates that are federal inmates. So I guess it's just a hard prediction. To make.
Can I speak to that, Mr. Chair? Can I speak to that? So I've let the Public Safety Committee know for quite a few months that we've had a lot of challenges with the number of local inmates that have been taking up room in our jail. We have not been able to take in as many federal wardens. I think today we're at 18 versus we really want to be at 30 to cover our budget. And in years prior to like 2019 and prior, we had many, many good years where we had a significant number of federal wardens, 35 to 40. We don't have the room to bring that many in right now. We've turned a lot away, unfortunately. And as I've reported, we've turned a lot of local inmates away from other sheriffs that are having trouble with staffing and looking for space to board them out. We could have certainly hit our projection levels if we didn't have such a full jail, but unfortunately, that's where we're at. And on the next page, unfortunately, you're going to see regarding the prescription meals, prescriptions especially, if we had, another 20, 25 federal wardens in our facility, not only would we be gaining the revenue, But, any prescription or medical costs would be borne by the federal government for them. We have more local inmates in our facility, so we're bearing the cost for that as well. So it's really having an impact not only on the revenue that we're bringing in, but our costs with so many more local individuals in our jail. And, I think when I look at all of these and just real quickly, and I'll sit down, when I look at all of these pressures on our budget, I think there's an overarching problem when we're looking at the health of our community, mental health, the situation with people being homeless. A lot of these things are impacting us in many different ways within the budget that you're seeing tonight. So I think, we need to take a broader look at some of the things that are going on in our community and trying to address those. But I just appreciate the opportunity to mention that.
That's what I was trying to get at. I wasn't making fault of anybody here, but because I can't remember what like 19, 18, 17, 16 was. Obviously, we had less local ordinance and more federal back in those days.
Actually, we had, well, yes, so we certainly had more board-ins, but we had fewer local people. When I say local in this context, I mean people that are our responsibility from our community that are facing charges here locally. So now that number's gone way up. We just don't have the space, but we could have certainly hit those projections had we had the space. We just don't have the room to bring them in.
So with the world we live in today, it ain't gonna change anytime soon from what we see. So we need to budget realistically for the world we live in, unfortunately. Until we start changing some policies here in New York State.
David?
The reason we got so many locals is because Brittany's doing an outstanding job.
Yeah, I blame it on the district attorney.
Keep it up.
Go ahead.
Sheriff, I was just curious, you mentioned getting inmates from other counties. What is that number looking like? And then we have to cover them as well for their needs here while they're with us.
If we board in inmates from other counties,
Yeah.
they pay us a board-in fee as well as all the medical costs and prescription
Oh, good.
costs.
Okay.
So I don't bill other counties if we have an inmate or two from another county. We all kind of have an agreement because we do the same thing. We have people boarded out that can't be in our jail because they might be related to somebody there or there's some issue. So kind of have an unwritten rule that we do that locally. I don't bill them, but if we have more than 3 or more, then we will bill them as well, just as we do with the feds. So we've had to turn a lot of them away, unfortunately, too. We just don't have the space.
Thank you.
I mean, just to let you know, and I'm looking at the numbers here, in 18, it was 1.4 million, in 19, it was 1.4 million, and in 20, it was 1.6 million.
Mr. Chair,
Started to.
I make a quick comment? I'll keep my questions for judicial and public safety, but I guess I'm just concerned, and hopefully the district attorney and the sheriff elucidate more in JP, but I was under the impression that less is more and bail reform and all the other criminal justice reforms were going to ensure that we had sufficient space and crime would be reduced. So I'm looking forward to an explanation as to why we have higher numbers in contradiction to the objectives of the legislation.
You're not a third grader. I think you can figure it out.
It was sarcasm.
That wasn't.
Free. Okay, so moving on to the next page. Brian had mentioned the prescription and drug account. We're looking to be over budget in that by about 185,000. And then the contract food services account, we're also projecting that will be over budget by 100,000.
That's the resolution we just did this month
Yes.
to try to make those money in those accounts to cover till the end of the year.
Right, so they,
Is that one over, Brian, just from feeding more people?
So we just have a higher population. So obviously the meal costs are higher and the prescriptions, I think I reported at JPS, but you've got the medication assisted treatment. We're seeing an additional $4,000 to $5,000 a month for those medications that are impacting our prescription budget. We didn't really know where we were going to be with that, but it's a little bit more significant than we had hoped. And then, having more local inmates again, instead of ones that we're getting revenue for and reimbursement for prescriptions, we're bearing the cost for all of those. So that's why we're seeing, higher prescription totals.
Okay.
Okay, so moving to the next page is the assigned council. We've discussed the assigned council rates have increased to $158 an hour. Due to that increase, we're looking to be over budget by approximately $300,000. And that includes, there is some additional state aid that we received for the increase. That includes that. So, and that is about $300,000.
Quick question on that. Will, I mean, since the state did this, will there be in the future continued aid from the state? Considering they're the ones that set this price.
In perpetuity.
And I don't. I'm not
Probably a
100%
Lloyd
sure on
question,
that.
yeah.
I think that's what they're saying now. But every governor budget could change, right? And legislation could change.
Question.
No. One question on that, Grace. 400K down below.
Oh, I was
There's
just,
also a minus number supposed to be.
no, I was just I was just mentioning that in April, we had projected that it was gonna be about 400,000, so. Yeah, that was actually, yeah, so we are a little better there. Yeah,
Okay.
all right, that was supposed to be in red.
Good thing, we didn't lose.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, right. Good news.
Yeah.
Okay,
So moving along, the next slide is really just an update on the contingent account. Just letting you know that we have had some other things taken out of there and the balance is 88,000. So just to kind of give you an update on that. And the last slide, I know last time, Hans, you asked me about the D&DM fund. So at this point, it does look as if both funds are operating within their budget. We are projecting to be under budget in two of the accounts I mentioned, the gasoline and the fuel oil. So between the two, we look to be under budget by about 350,000. And then also the contractual salary increases over there are projected to be around 126,000, but they should be covered by department vacancies as well. And I did reach out and talk with Brian, and other than these couple items, he's not expecting anything that would cause any significant change in the budget performance. So throughout the end of the year, so.
any questions or comments?
Just a quick one. So without going through and doing math here, projecting the end of the year, where do we set? Gonna be above, below?
So so in the budget, we did budget that we would use about $3 million of fund balance, general fund, and then in the D&DM, about 500,000. I guess looking at this, I think we're projecting that we are still probably going to need to use some of that fund balance, but hopeful that, you know, maybe it'll be half that.
One other question for everybody. Is this the type of report you wanted?
Yes.
Yep.
Everybody have?
Very good, thank you.
Okay.
Took a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn, for helping.
Okay, we can find where we're supposed to be.
I need to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Do I need to do my resolution or is that?
Yep. Where are you?
Sorry about that.
3, right? Is it 3?
No, resolution 1.
Want me to move it, Mr. Chair, for
Go
discussion?
ahead, yeah.
Second.
Okay. WM1, I guess.
Yep.
WM1. So it's basically just a housekeeping resolution. The claims and liability account used to be in another fund. Now it's been moved to the general fund. And it was budgeted, an error, it was budgeted in a transfer to the CNL fund or to the CNL account. And so we just need to move the money from that account over to the expenditure accounts within the A fund, which is where the bills are being paid. So it's just a cleanup item.
Somebody move it.
I'll move it.
I think we are.
Second.
I second.
Just moved it.
Okay,
Andy seconded.
any discussion or not all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
No one knows, so hold on. Thank you.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
good report.
Thank you.
Okay. Diane, I believe is next.
Good evening. You all have my report. I'll just ask if anyone has any questions for me.
No, wherever. I guess not.
All right, thank you.
That was easy.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Okay, Member Grady, please.
You all have my report. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Amanda? Everything going good in the purchasing department?
Yes, busy, really busy.
Just bought some Dodge cars, I heard.
Dodge Durangos and some Chargers for
What's the sheriff?
the sheriff.
Sheriff saved us quite a bit of money, I think, what, 7 or 80,000?
Yeah, we saved significantly, and then they're found another location to get them outfitted nicely, so that they shouldn't have to wait nearly as long, so.
Are they already made, I hope?
The cars were, yeah, they were, they don't have to wait for them.
Well
We
done.
had 4 of them,
Utica?
the Chargers.
The radios?
Delivered to the outfitter.
Okay, anything further for Amanda? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we're down to resolutions. We've done 1 and 2.
I just need to do 3.
I'll move WM3.
Second,
Where is it?
it's,
Up on the second page.
It's after 2 and before 4.
It's over here, this sheet.
See, Hans, you gotta get the stapled version.
Yep, I took them out. That's what happened. Okay, motion for WM3.
Move it.
second,
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye.
aye.
Anyone opposed? I believe it's carried. We're adding WM5. Jim?
WM5. On Senate Bill 4, I'd like to make a motion to move WM5 for repealing of certain provisions of executive law establishing a fee for background checks on certain firearms and ammunition purchases.
I'll second it.
Let's move it and second it. It's open for discussion.
So we're calling this one that you handed out 5.
Yep.
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 Just
Made resolution.
without it being a party pooper, why is this a Ways and Means resolution? I would think if we wanted to.
Because
be
I
one-
asked it to be, so we get it on the agenda for the meeting next week.
Because it could have been presented as one of the issues we take a stand on at the floor at the ledge meeting, but this is
It
for
wasn't
just,
done until tonight,
okay,
okay?
yeah.
So that's why there's no further notice.
I-
And figured that we've got a week or so to go before the meeting, so
Yeah.
there can be plenty of discussion on it.
And that's perfectly fine. I'll have a week to kind of look at this and better understand what I would be voting on one way or the other. So I'll be a no vote for tonight, but I potentially could change my mind after I get a little more information.
I'd love to have a conversation if you're willing to have one with me.
Okay. But yeah, I don't
second
know
that.
the details of
Understood.
all of this.
Yeah.
This is part of the Fulton County one that was sent
I
out.
saw it in the email and I'm like, oh, I wonder if this will surface, but I don't really have a lot of information on the issue.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also, and anyone opposed? Okay, will be so noted. Thank you.
Amanda, did you get the opposition?
Yes, noted. Thank you.
Okay, let's see, we're down to Health and Human Services.
Okay. Health and Human Services had, when all was said and done, we ended up moving 11 resolutions. HH2 was pulled prior to the meeting, and I do believe we added HH12. All of these resolutions passed from the committee. I would make a motion to bundle unless.
Where's
Oh,
HH?
12's in the middle. I see it.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, 12 got added under the Department of
It's
Social.
before
Services.
6 and after 7.
Except on the sheet.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, you got that backwards. It's after 6, before 7.
Yeah. So we're bundling 1 through 12, if I understand correctly.
Except with 2 being pulled already. Yep.
2 was pulled.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Wait a minute.
Hope for discussion, anybody?
I have a discussion. So reading 12 and reading 2 that's pulled, authorizing the commissioner and solicitor to execute one agreements with Sapphire Recruitment, blah, blah, blah. And direct hire candidates for the director of fiscal management and social services, but yet 2. Is there a connection between them? Create a fiscal supervisor?
Nope, that was going to be a potential retitling of a position in the health department, nothing to do with 12.
So the wording just sounds similar,
Yes.
but it's, okay.
Yep, 12 was just a way, when we talked about getting a headhunter to try to get some of these positions that just can't get filled. This was a discussion around about getting this group called CPS Recruitment. Lydia said she was certainly aware of the company. I think this came out of the Department of Social Services. They made the contact. Sounds like they've been quite successful in getting a fiscal candidate. And now we're going to test this out to see if we could do something to get these DSS attorneys filled, because you speak with the county attorney's office, you know, what's happening and their ability to manage all this work just on their own is just not sustainable. So we're hoping to get this headhunter group looking at the attorney positions and hope they have as much success with them as they did with the fiscal management, which was the old Grace Blower's position before she took the job as the director of finance. And that has literally been vacant since January.
Grace Flowers,
Mr. Chair.
not the old position, the old Grace Flower.
To speak to HH 12 on this headhunter, so to speak, there's some expenses that go with that, but because the budget, we haven't had those people employed. The goal would be for that to be a net zero impact to the budget, but there are some substantial costs that go with hiring these people. And their warranty on the people you hire is limited. Just so you know, if you didn't have a chance to read through or listen into the HHS committee meeting, but I think it is something that I would have strongly support getting those positions filled.
Mr. Chair.
Just reading down through these really quick. I see a lot of them are just to authorizing to fill, you know, like HH 9 authorizing to fill, HH 10 or 11 authorizing to fill. How long have these positions been vacant and why are we filling currently now?
Well, okay, we'll start with 8. I think the aging services part-time specialist is a recent resignation. It's my understanding. Yep. The staff social worker is a resignation. The staff social worker at the jail, there was a recent resignation. I think they have a candidate that might be able to fill that position already. So none of these have been like vacant all year long.
That was my question. As simple as that. Thank you very much.
Chair, can I just, one quick question,
Yep.
please? Just for clarification, the utilization of the remaining COVID funding is not going into salaries, correct?
No, you mean the Office for the Aging Resolution?
Number 7, yes.
Yes, I think there was, as the year went on, I think maybe potentially Lynn realized there was 112,000 of the COVID money they had that will be unable to be spent after September of next year that didn't get moved into the budget. So they're moving it into the budget to offset some of the costs for the meals. But no, this money's all going to be drying up, and it was to support the meal programs.
Thank you. Just want to make sure we didn't have that whole moving forward.
No, like there's extra money, so let's give people raises.
No, I got it. 12 there, the head, I mean, did we give this headhunter company parameters of what, I mean, when they're out there looking, do they know what our budget is for?
I think Annie and Christine's here too. This is a flat fee, a percentage of the annual earnings that they're going to get paid if they actually find a candidate for us.
Well, I mean,
Find for salary, I'm sorry.
yeah, do they know what our salary boundaries are though for?
Yep, for the specific position, we'll tell them what the salary is, and then there's their percentage that they'll get if they hire. And I think Jim was speaking to, they're gonna guarantee within 45 days, if something doesn't happen, or if someone quits, or we don't like the person, or it doesn't work out, then they will find another candidate for us that we're happy with, and if that doesn't happen, they will refund 75% of that fee. And from what I understand, you know, this is a pretty well-known, reputable headhunting company. And, you know, we all talked about it at one of the meetings. It's a different way of trying to approach getting some of these very difficult positions filled.
Any further questions?
Just another comment about how that process works. The headhunters actually are hunting people who are currently employed. So these are people who, if they make a decision, they're quite motivated to make the change because they're currently employed and in place.
So they're quitting a job to come here.
Right.
Yep.
They're making changes to come here. So we have that kind of difference, that kind of whatever you want to call it, hopefulness in staying, is that they've made big changes to come. So they're not really looking at the general population. They're out looking at employed people.
Any further comments or questions? Otherwise, we're moving the bundle, whatever it is.
Okay.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I guess the bundle is carried. What did we miss?
That's everything.
That's it.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Government operating, please.
Give me time. I'll hold my beer. I'll screw this up for you. Yeah. Government operations had 8 resolutions, I believe. Yes, 8 resolutions. GO3, we already dispensed with. GO7 was tabled and rightfully so. So I, at this time, would move 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
No, not seven.
Sorry. Yeah, I told you I screwed up. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8 as a bundle.
Move it, Lucille. Second, Mark.
For discussion on the bundle. Any comments, questions?
Just curious why 7 was pulled.
Because 7, it was, I can't remember if it was Trish or Mr. Basile brought to our attention, and I missed it too, with full disclosure, that in one of our policies, there was questions about firearms, like, so I think you brought up Mr. Basile.
Firearms and a dress code.
Yeah, if you were like, say you're crossing county property, like up your way, coming across the trail, like no firearms on the trail, are you gonna get? We were looking for further explanation about what that says. Like, are you gonna be charged with a crime if you're crossing county policy with a firearm hunting? So that was my understanding of why that one was tabled.
The state has made us all criminals anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but yeah, that it was full.
Dress code don't matter, that's Schumer.
I think it was a code of conduct, right? Not a dress code. Was it code of conduct?
Was it code of conduct?
Yeah, like
Dress
what constitutes.
Dress code was the United States Senate, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a bundle. It's been moved and seconded, so all those, if there's further discussion?
No.
Not all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Credential and public safety, Mark.
No, we got planning. Planning.
You got planning and public works.
Oh, God, yes. I'm doing well tonight.
Someone get this man a stapler.
Planning, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning has 2 resolutions been through committee. Unless there's discussion, I'll see a motion to bundle.
Second, Lucille.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded for planning 1 and 2. Any discussion, questions? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Also carried. Thank you. Public Works.
All right, Public Works has Okay, we're gonna go 9 resolutions that went through committee and passed. So I'm gonna offer those as a bundle to start.
Move it, Basile. Second, Mark.
Okay, discussion on the bundle? Anyone? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
All right, PW 10. I'm assuming if you saw it today, you got it. Was added. Authorizing the chair to enter into contract to replace a shelter and to use the ARPA funds as a match to the chess grant program. So obviously it's, if anybody has any questions about it, they could probably ask Lynn, I would assume.
I'll move it for discussion.
Second, Basile.
Open for discussion, so any comments, questions?
Basically, we had to do it.
This was the expensive replacement of the shelter, right?
Yeah.
Remember they took the shelter
Yeah.
down and we all looked at these plans and it was I thought you had said that it was more
That was
expensive,
big down last year.
but certain.
Yes.
worth
This is
it.
one of the
Shelter
part, basically, it's one of those deals where we finally
part.
do it, so we have to hurry up and do it because next month it'll probably cost 10%. And then in November, it'll probably cost 20%. So that's why it's added today.
Any further? Anything further, anybody? Not all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's carried.
Don't could have said it better, I forgot.
Now we're down to judicial and public safety, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judicial and Public Safety has 5 resolutions tonight. JP 3 was pulled at committee. I would offer JP 1, 2, 4, and 5 the bundle. unless-
Move it, Basile.
Second.
Okay, it's open for discussion. Any comments, questions? God, we'll get out of here yet. So,
No, not yet.
Yeah. Sorry.
okay. All those in favor of the bundle?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's carried. And we're ready to, with executive session, I believe, so.
Very ominous. I'll make it everybody was thinking, not
yet. When is this? You have to say what it's for.
Yeah, for the contract. Pertaining to.
Pertaining to a contract.
You have to say what it's for. What was it again?
Pertaining to a contract,
Since it's not on the sheet that we're even going in.
I guess.
Motion.
We didn't do
Can I just get a motion and a second on that?
I made the motion about.
It's not your first rodeo.
Mr. Basile made the motion.
Do you want to second it?
Second.
Good, Amanda?
Got to vote though.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I am.
Aye.
Thank you. If you guys could just remember to come back in to adjourn.
Yes.
Sure you get me opposed to going into this.
Okay, thank you.
You might have failed it, but she actually did.
Today, I went Monday, Sunday, and Thursday, one Friday.
Yeah, so we purchased.
No, Friday.
Really? The Republican Party did? He's been up there forever, hasn't
Wake her up.
Brutal.
Make sure she's
We're
awake.
dedicated, we're staying.
These are two people that are afraid someone's gonna talk about it.
Exactly, we're not stupid.
They're gonna worry about their budgets. Motion, is everyone here? Motion to exit executive session?
Asked if Amanda was on, she didn't respond.
We might have to just give her the.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah, wake up.
Chair made the motion to come out.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Good night, girls.
Motion to adjourn,
Meeting.
motion to adjourn the meeting.
Move it.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
No, none. Carried.
So have a good night.
You too, Amanda.